Hi, I'm Alex. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. I am a 24-year-old data analyst in the greater New York City area who loves reading and Disney, particularly Disney, which is why we're here today. So I got a Snapchat memory today that 3 years ago I left for my Disney college program, and given that applications are about to drop for fall and fall advantage of this year, I wanted to film a DCP experience video. So this is something that is near and dear to my heart. My first video on my channel was the DCP tag, announcing that I was doing the program and answering some basic questions. So I gave up on YouTube while I was there and never got to film a proper wrap-up, so I figured I would do it now to answer just some typical questions and give another vantage point for people who are maybe looking to do the DCP in the future. So the first question that everybody asks is, why did you do it? I knew that senior year I wanted to take a semester to either study abroad or do some kind of work experience. So I was debating between studying abroad in New Zealand in the fall semester or graduating early and doing the Disney College program in the spring. I heard about the Disney College program from a couple of friends who were doing it, and then did my own research and found like Emily Enchanted, and that's when I started watching Tim Tracker videos and falling in love with Disney all over again. So in the end, I decided not to study abroad in the fall, that I was going to graduate in December of 2018 and do the Disney College program in the spring of 2019. So I applied in August of 2018, applications dropped, and I just submitted mine, drag and drop your resume, easy apply, whatever. Didn't really take that much time or thought into it, because I was like, if I get denied, I get denied. Like, it would be cool to work at Disney, but a lot of people get denied their first time, and maybe I'm just too late. So I didn't put in a lot of effort because I didn't want to get my hopes up. And then as I was watching people get their interviews on the Disney College Program Facebook page, if you're not a part of one of those already, you should absolutely go find one. It's where you find like your roommates and friends and whatever. So seeing everybody post on the Disney College Program page that they were getting interviews and they were getting acceptances, and I was still stuck. And if you applied for the program already, you know what it's like to be stuck in like application pending or whatever it is. It's awful. It's horrendous to be stuck there. It's like purgatory, I swear. But then randomly one day I went to get coffee and do homework during or after class and had an email with my WBI. So the WBI is a web-based interview. It's just a typical interview about like what kind of worker are you, what kind of personality do you have, etc. They really want to know if you're a good fit for Disney. And the number one piece of advice I can give on this WBI is not to lie. There are a lot of questions on it that they do actually take into account later. An example of one of those is they ask if you're okay with working early morning shifts, and the recruiters use your answer to that to determine where they place you. So if you say, yes, I'm okay with working early morning shifts, you're going to get put somewhere, or you have a greater opportunity to be put somewhere where your shifts are going to start at 5 a.m. If you say, yes, I'm a night owl and that's when I'm the most productive, you're probably going to get put somewhere that your shifts are going to go until 2 or 3 a.m. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your application, and please do not lie on it because it's just going to come back to you later. So at the end of the web-based interview, if you make it through it, you're given the opportunity to schedule your phone interview. So I scheduled my phone interview with a recruiter, and they called me, I think it was 5 days later, and I had my interview and it was great. They do try to pair you with somebody who you have something in common with, so you can make a connection and feel more comfortable. So the person that I had was also, they had also graduated from the college that I went to, and they were able to talk to me about life living in Connecticut and things of that nature. So we were able to make that connection pretty fast. And then I didn't hear anything, again, radio silence for like 2 weeks, and I was feeling so discouraged watching everybody get their acceptances for roles that I wanted on Facebook. It's hard to watch. If you weren't in that like first 3 waves of acceptances, you weren't coming until February, and I really wanted to go in January. It was something that I was like extremely interested in. So watching all these people start filling up that January move-in date was very hard for me, but my acceptance came eventually. I was super excited. One thing that I never saw in any of these videos when I was watching them is that you only get 48 hours to make your decision. So when they send it to you, you have 2 days from that time to either accept or deny your offer. And in that time, you also need to put down like a $500 deposit for your fees and your first week living in your apartment and things like that. So know that that could happen, and it might. So moving on from there, I found my roommates in the DCP Spring 2019 Facebook page. These girls are still some of my best friends to this day. I absolutely love them. I'm so glad that Facebook brought us together. It's such a crazy thing to think about, but I found my roommates. We decided which complex we wanted to live in and filled out all that paperwork. So specifically, I lived in Vista Way. It was our last choice, and I think anybody who has done the DCP will know why, but Vista was interesting to say the least. We had some experiences there. So we had termites in our apartment. That was a big thing, and they were like chewing through the wall. We also had a cockroach in our apartment that broke our thermostat and made it like an Arctic tundra in there, like not kidding, 50 degrees when we woke up, which is super cold for a Florida summer, obviously. So that was a mess. I mean, Vista in general is just was not the nicest, but RIP Vista Way. We still loved living there. So my role on the Disney College program, I was a seater at Kona Cafe in the Polynesian, and I was really excited to be seater. At the time, it was considered a premium college program position. They got paid a little bit more than everybody else. It wasn't exactly what I would have expected. So in most locations, the seaters are greeters and seaters, and that's it. They are hostesses and hosts. They do what they need to do, exactly what the job description says. In my case, and at a few other restaurants, I know this is also the case at Ale & Compass. It might be at Cape May Cafe, but I'm not 100% sure about that. And a couple other places, that your table service job somehow translates into having to work quick service. So when you work at Kona Cafe in the Polynesian, you also have to work at the coffee bar, which is Kona Island, and that is not something that they tell you until you show up for training, that you have to work quick service as well. And I specifically told my recruiter that I did not want QSFB. It's known as being one of the worst positions. People really don't want it, and it kind of sucked, honestly. But I will say that I think I made the best of a bad situation. I did everything I needed to do, and I did it well, and I made sure that I was never a nuisance. So very quickly, my leader started to really like me. Before I knew it, was training in private dining. I really liked private dining at first, and I was bussing for private dining, but very quickly they started putting only me on private dining shifts, and it was killing my back and giving me awful back spasms, and I had to pay $500 to go to a chiropractor and get readjusted because of how much pain I was in, and it was awful. So eventually one of the other CPs got trained, and she was given most of the shifts, thankfully. She is also on YouTube, and I know she's talked about her college program experience and said some pretty negative things about our location, probably because of this private dining fiasco. It was pretty terrible to work in, but their part-timers for private dining would constantly call out, and if they did come in, they wouldn't do any work, so it didn't even matter that they had come in to begin with. So the two of us kind of got the sucky end of the stick on that, but like I said, I was not afraid to go ask for things that I wanted, and I went to my leaders and said, I hate doing this, train me somewhere else. So I was like, I will do anything you want, I don't care, I want to keep cross-training in everything. So the next position I trained for was general teller, and that's where I landed and spent the rest of my program, was as a general teller for Kona Cafe and Ohana, and it was so much fun. I know now coordinators do most of this work, but I loved being a GT. I loved sitting in the office and interacting with the servers and dealing with money and feeling like I had a more important role overall. I thought that was really fun. So the next thing I'm kind of going to talk about is transportation. So Disney does provide buses for their college program participants. They provide them to the post office, to grocery stores, to Disney Springs, to all the parks, and I believe to all the resorts as well. I took the bus, I think 3 times total, my entire CP. I'll talk a little bit about what training looked like. So your first thing that you do when you get there is go to casting, and you have to do your fingerprints. You take your picture for your blue ID, you sign paperwork, they make sure that you fit the Disney look, you bring all like your I-9 stuff, and you just make sure all of the like HR things are all set at casting. And then if you are in a role that requires it, you have to do drug and alcohol testing, or just drug testing. I didn't have to drug test for my role, but a lot of my friends and attractions did. Anything where you could be responsible for the safety of somebody else, you're gonna have to get drug tested for. So just keep that in mind. And then the next thing you do after that is traditions, which is a big thing at Disney. It's sort of secretive. But every Disney employee has to go through it, every Disney cast member, and Mickey comes and he gives you your name tag, and it's super special, and I honestly cried so much. And then you have 2 more days after that of training at Disney University, or at least I had 2 days after that of training at DU. I know now some of that is shorter, or you do some of the trainings on site instead. We had my Aloha day at the Polynesian, which you show up, you're still dressed business casual at this point, and we got a tour of the resort. We went and met all of the leaders and got our costumes that day, and just learned some general things. We had to learn some like words and phrases that we were going to have to use, things like mahalo, which is thank you, and e como mai, which is welcome home. Given that the Polynesian's a DVC resort, you had to always say aloha and e como mai, which is just hello and welcome home. So we had to learn a lot of those things, and I'm sure if you're in like Galaxy's Edge, this class is a lot longer for you because you have to learn all of the technical terms from Batu. So it's going to be different depending on where you're placed, but I thought that day was a lot of fun. And then after that, I had a full week of training in the coffee bar, and then I started training as a greeter and then as a seater, and then at the end you have an assessment. So I got assessed in all 3 positions. It's kind of just when either a leader or a coordinator, depending on where you are, follows you around and makes sure you know everything that you're doing, and that you can work on your own without a trainer. The last thing I want to talk about is just things that we did for fun. And I know that you're at Disney, you're gonna go to Disney probably, and it's It's so much fun to do that. But we also got annual passes for Universal. We loved going to Universal. Sometimes it was just a nice break. When you're constantly in the Disney bubble, you need to escape it occasionally. Especially me and my roommates. A couple of my roommates were huge Harry Potter fans, so we went and did that. Universal also does a lot of like concerts and stuff that you can get into for free if you have an annual pass, so it might be worth it if you're there. And you can get a Florida resident discount as well when you're on your college program. We went to the Disney parks a lot, and then we drove to a few different beaches. So I know most CPs go to Cocoa Beach. Is that what it is? I don't even know. I mostly went to Clearwater, and then once we went to St. Petersburg, which was really fun. So I just wanted to add in here just a little bit of advice that I have and I think gained from my program. So the number one thing I'm going to say is don't be afraid to ask for what you want. If you want to train somewhere else, or not somewhere else, but if you want to train a different position that still fits within your role, ask for it. Ask a leader, because the worst they can say is no. With the staffing shortages at Disney right now, they honestly probably won't. So that is a big thing. Just ask for what you want. I think it's a lot of the reason that I had a more positive experience in my college program than other people who worked in the same location as me. I always just went and expressed how I was feeling to the leaders, and while that may be scary, sometimes it's necessary, and it was definitely worth it for me. Another piece of advice I have is to soak in every minute, and I know that this sounds obvious and probably a little cliche, but it really was the best like 7.5 months or whatever of my life, and I would give anything to go back and just hang out with my best friends all day, every day in the most magical place on earth again. It was so much fun, and I don't know, I don't think another experience could ever get close for me to what the DCP was. The last piece of advice I'll give, well, two more. First, buy the freaking merchandise. Like, just buy it. Who cares? Buy it for yourself. When else are you going to have that 20 to 40%, depending on the time of year, cast discount? Go buy the merchandise. Along with this, go to the restaurants. That's something that we did a lot on my program that I feel like I haven't really heard a lot of other people talk about, is that we tried to go to as many of the table service restaurants as possible. You have a pretty nice cast discount. I would suggest using it because once you lose that and you decide that you're going to go back to Disney quite often, every time you hand them your card and they ask you if you have any kind of discount, it breaks your heart a little more to say no. So go and say yes to that question as many times as you can on your program, whether it's resort stays, food, merchandise, whatever. Go do it all. Go play mini golf at Winter Summerland for free because you can. Go, like, do all of these things that you can only do because you work for Disney, because eventually you won't, unfortunately, is the reality for most people, and it's sad to not be there anymore after having all those perks. The last thing I will say is, if you are debating buying an annual pass and you think for any reason you might buy it in the next 6 months after finishing your program, get it before you finish so you can get a Florida resident discount on it, because you can use your apartment address at, I guess now everybody is in Flamingo Crossing, but you can use that apartment address as your Florida resident address and go get yourself $200 to $300 off of the annual pass. So if you're thinking about getting one, just get it, because I wish I had gotten mine when I could have gotten it for $800 instead of paying $1,500 for it. So that is going to be it for this DCP experience and advice video. If you are applying, good luck. If you are about to start your program, also good luck. I hope you have the most fun ever. It was just such a special experience, and I wish I could do it for the first time again. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.